24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo, Dr. Shirley and medium Kelly White. Two perspectives, one world. This is Both Sides Now.
There you go. And we are live, ladies.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
And I'm medium Kelly White.
And we've got John, our engineer, with us today.
Hello, hello. Good to
John.
be back with you.
Yeah.
Today is such a special day for us.
Sure is.
Oh my gosh. I've been waiting for this day.
You have.
We have a special guest. I'm going to tell you about him, and then I'm going to announce who he is. This man, besides being my dear friend and mentor and just a wonderful person ever in the world to me, he's a pioneer in mediumship. Shirley, if it wasn't for James, this what? He just gave it away. If it wasn't for this incredible man, I'm telling you, mediumship would never be where it is.
I know.
Including anybody like the Long Island medium or the Hollywood medium or any of them.
Right.
Nobody would have had access to doing what James did. James literally opened the door for all of us, including myself.
He brought it to the mainstream.
He brought it to the mainstream.
Yeah.
He is helping to dispel fear.
Right.
Fear has been, is rampant in this world about death. And I can't wait to launch into this with him. But let me just tell you a little bit about James. He is one of the most celebrated and respected spiritual mediums working today. He's brought a mindful awareness to the subject of communication with the dead into the public psyche for the past 30 years. He is a survival evidence medium. His work has brought spiritual insights to millions with his numerous guest appearances on Oprah, Dr. Phil, Larry King Live, 2020, The View, The Today Show, Chelsea Lately. He also has written several books, many of them #1 best-selling books. Talking to Heaven is my favorite book of all time.
Yeah.
I have to say, I love this man. He's incredible. Let's welcome James Van Praagh. Yay! Welcome, James.
Kelly, thank you, Shirley.
Welcome, James. I'm so glad that you're on today with us. So excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And that was a very nice introduction. Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, James. We go way back.
Yeah.
I just love James. And, by the way, I'm also the godmother of his new baby, Peanut. Welcome, Peanut. Yay.
Maybe we can throw up a picture of Peanut.
Okay.
Peanut, the little, what kind of terrier?
A terrier dachshund mix, and she's 9 weeks old. They got a local rescue here, and she kind of picked me out of all the people that were standing there. She came out and jumped on me, and that's exactly the dog that we wanted. So, so it's beautiful.
That's so sweet.
So sweet.
So I was wondering, James, if we could start with our listeners who don't know a lot about, communication with the other side, what happens after we die. If you can give just maybe a brief overview of that, in some generalities, and maybe we can start the show off that way.
Sure. Well, based upon my many years of 30-something years of experience as a spiritual medium, and also my investigation of many years, since I was a little kid, actually, I started investigating this work. I believe that we are just energy. We're really just energy, and that we are souls having a human experience, and that this is really our schoolroom down here on the earth. And there are many schoolrooms. Earth is one of many different types of schoolrooms in many different solar systems and star systems and planets, if you will. And I believe that we come back here to learn various lessons for our soul's growth and expansion. And I believe that our time to be born is destined, and our time to pass out of the body and graduate is also destined. Of course, our free will can change certain things. But then what happens at the time of death, it's a very normal thing in that our energy, our soul leaves a physical shell, very much like a worn out car, and the driver leaves. It happens very naturally. It's one of the things that spirit will often say when they come back is, wow, I didn't realize how natural it was. Mm-hmm. So, and we've done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times before also. So not again just on this earth, but other systems, other planets, other star systems. So it's really just a release of I say it's a release of the spirit, and you go back home to the spiritual vibration or dimension, and the spirit world is all around us. It's just a faster vibratory rate of dimensions. And that's really what it is. And that's what happens when we leave the body. There's no pain in death whatsoever. Leading up to a death may be some painful type of thing with a disease or something, but the actual part when the spirit leaves, there is no pain whatsoever. And the one thing they often say when they leave the body is they want their family to know they're not dead. They're very, very much alive. Like in the movie Ghost, Sam wanted his girlfriend to know he was very, very much alive. And that's really the way it is.
It just, knowing that, I think, brings so much healing and so much peace for people.
And it takes away fear.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, fear can rule our lives in many, many different aspects of our lives, as you know. And the biggest fear we have for many people is death. There's an ending to it and a finality. And I always say two common experiences we share as human beings. The first is birth, and we know a little bit about that. And the other is death, and we all want to know more about death, what exactly happens in experience. So if you can bring through this information, alleviate that fear of death, you can then really start to begin to live life. And then, of course, then we go next step, which is be responsible for the life that you're living here, because once we step over to the side after so-called death, we have to see our entire life as a life review of the life we've just lived on the earth. And we see the tests that we passed, the lessons that we passed, or the lessons we did not pass, and we have to maybe learn again. So once you have an awareness that there's no death and you take away the fear, you also have that sense of responsibility, living a responsible life.
Mm-hmm. That is so true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. My gosh.
You should think.
It's just, and it does. And I mean, you wrote a wonderful book called Unfinished Business, and I think that, I think it's so important because some people get stuck, when someone dies and they feel they have unfinished business, either if it's a parent or, a child or something. And you can stay, the person who still has the physical body, I was going to say who's still alive, but with the physical body, sometimes they get so stuck and it's hard for them to move on and to actually continue to live. And it's life just passing them by because they feel they haven't, they don't have that closure.
Well, also, they start to feel guilty.
Right.
People feel guilty
yeah.
here. And James, if anybody has never been to one of James's events, you must go to his website, check out the next event if it's near you, and attend. Because often, wouldn't you agree, James, that the messages, even though they may be for a specific person, that affect all of the audience?
Yeah, very much so. Because number one, we're all the same. I really do believe the two greatest illusions we have in this three-dimensional world. The first is death. There is no death. The second illusion is that we're separate from one another. There's a sense of separativeness. When in reality, there is no separativeness. We're all part of each other. We're all part of the same light energy, if you will. And I think that we're all like prisms, and we have different degrees of light or color, based upon our thoughts and our awareness and our experiences. But when I do my events as a survival evidence medium, it really is the spirit. I'm really being used by the spirit world, and I have to surrender my own earthly mind and just be open to whatever they have to say. Many people come to my events think that I'm going to read people in the audience, and I pick the people in the audience, or I go to certain people, and it's not true at all. When I come to my audience, I say, well, I'm sorry to let you know this, but I'm really working for the spirit world, not for you, because this is an opportunity for those in the spirit world who, let's say they just had a life review and they're very sorry, they're guilt-ridden, or they want to say I love you to their daughter, but they never had an opportunity to say I love you. And they have this one opportunity for this 1 hour with this medium to come through, one last chance to come through. They will take that opportunity. So I really am, I bring that through. And on all the messages, many of those messages are very common messages that a lot of human beings experience, whether it's guilt, whether it's letting go, whether it's grieving, whether it's feeling like I could have done better, I should have done better, I should have said more things to my loved one. It's a commonality that we share. So yes, it'll affect everybody in the audience for sure.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I've been there, James, and because I've known you, when Kelly met you, so what a left brain I am. I've been in the audience with you when you've described exactly what, I'll never forget this. It was a mother who unfortunately had to bury, I think, her teenage son, and you described exactly how she buried him, the clothes that she put on him, his favorite baseball hat, what color it was. I mean, that was just, and the healing that it brought her. I mean, I was just looking at her face. I was noticing her body language, and when she got up, she was kind of like this. And by the time you finished the message, she was so much more relaxed, and you could just see it in her body. It is truly amazing.
It's life-changing, life-affirming, and life-changing.
and for me, and people say in the audience, say, well, don't you get tired of this? You've done so many 30 odd years. And I said, no, it's always a miracle for me when I am able to be the vessel for spirit. And the more I can surrender my mind, it gets stronger and stronger. And getting down to Shirley, recently this past year, the messages have been so amazing in that not only describing the shirt, but becoming aware of the texture of the shirt, becoming aware of the texture of the pin that the father places on the jacket in the casket of the son, or, I mean, names of files, numbers, addresses, phone numbers. It's coming through a lot lately that way. And I love that because, as a medium, I'm always growing and learning and figuring out how to be used by the spirit world for a better way. So once you come to a demonstration, there's no way, and you can say, wow, there's no way this is so true. There's no way this guy's making this stuff up. It's so detailed.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love opening up the minds and hearts of people. And that's what I do.
Yeah. There was, there's always a few people that really strike me. There was another one when I think one of the first times that I saw you, it was this family is sitting behind me. His brother had passed, and he was, you could see he was a gang member. He was dressed that way. And his brother, the message that you sent was, he wants to thank you for putting the same rosary tattoo on your body that he had in commemoration of his brother. And the guy who was looked like a tough, gang member that had been through a lot, just lost it in that moment because he had, in fact, after his brother died, had put the same kind of rosary tattoo. It was a big one that he even showed, I think, a little bit in the audience. It's just, and that's what, just so people who are listening and may not know what evidentiary right, mediumship is. Can you say a little bit about that?
So the evidential mediumship is really specific details that the spirit people provide. And for people to understand this, what really happens in the process of this is if we could think of ourselves as souls, and the soul is the mind is part of the soul, and that the brain is part of the physical body that dies at death, but the mind continues on. And what happens is the spirit people are, of course, their mind, they're creating a thought, a feeling, an emotion. They're projecting the mind, so it's mind-to-mind communication. And what happens is I'm just feeling and becoming aware of old memories that they will give into my mind. They will give to my mind what the day of the funeral. They will give to my mind details as far as how they died, what the hospital they died in, names and details, as best as I can. Some communicators are excellent and some are not. Some are not as good as other people. Just like here on the human earth, there's people that are very good at communication and other people are closed down. Same thing, you don't change that drastically. I remember just recently I was in Hawaii and I did a demonstration, and it was a little girl on the stage, a spirit girl. She was 3 years old. She said, today is my birthday, and I want to give my mommy and daddy hello. And they went to this couple in the back row, and they said, yes, we lost a 3-year-old daughter, and today would be her birthday.
Wow.
And she said, Daddy, thank you for the angel wings for me. And he goes, and he started crying. He was a big, big guy. He started crying. He goes, thank you for the angel wings. And he said, I just got them today. And he turns around, he takes off his shirt, and he has these 2 big angel wing tattoos on his back that he got in memory of his girl, the little girl. So that was pretty amazing. That just happened recently.
Wow. God. Yeah. I mean, the whole audience must have just melted.
Oh, yeah, they freaked out. Everyone freaks out. It's so great, because then when you realize there's no way, this is an amazing, in details are so
they're so specific.
Specific.
Yeah.
And that's the best part of mediumship. A good medium, an excellent medium, is someone who will bring through evidential details, not generalities, but evidential. I'm very skeptical, and I know when I want to see a medium, I want to get 7 items out of 10 of evidentiary, detailed messages. And that's in general things like, oh, she died in the springtime, but tell me that she died on April the 5th at 6 o'clock at night. That's what I want to hear. Wow. So as a medium, I always have to try to get to that point. And I know, Kelly, you do too, where we always try to get the best detail possible. And part of the hardest part of that is really getting out of your own way, because the ego and the human mind, as Shirley, you know this, sometimes gets in the way of our truth.
It does.
And we rationalize and put a logical brain on it some way, but then we have to step aside and be inspired and really let them come through and really let the message and the awareness come in. And that's the hard part, is let the human mind step to the side and letting spirit come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you're describing it now, I'm actually understanding it more and more about what you mean, that if they're communicating with you, you have to give room for their thoughts to show up in your mind so you can communicate them, because I can see how easily that could get confused with, your thoughts or, you know.
And often you will only have one chance, right, James, to work
Yeah.
with. If somebody's a skeptic and they come in to see you or go to, and receives a message in an audience, they could be very skeptical. And you only have one chance for the other side. If it doesn't really work for the other side, they may not come back again, right? To give a message?
Sure. Just think it might be the father that never said I love you to his daughter for 35, 45 years. And he passed away never saying I love you. And he goes on his life review and he sees how just by not saying I love you, it kind of messed up her life where she didn't trust people. She didn't know what love was about. And all these different things come about. And just think that father might have tried then to maybe get back to her through a medium and may attempt to go through many, many mediums and practice the process of communication. And eventually he finally finds he's there one night with the daughters in the audience. He worked there to try to get her in the audience. He got her there. The right medium is presenting. And then the person in the audience might have some other things going on. They might change the atmosphere of the thought because they're skeptical, or their cat might have recently passed away. They just want to talk to the cat, and they leave no space for this father to come through. So that's very good when you say this, the area, the atmosphere, the space around the person. The medium needs a space. And this is so interesting, too. This just came up recently. I've been working in an audience, and someone mentioned something about, let's say it's a divorce. Well, then, and someone else comes in later on, the spirit, and they talk about the divorce and how the divorce did this to them, and it matches what the other person was talking about in divorce, the same subject matter. And I said, wow, that's really interesting. You've opened up the space for the subject of divorce or whatever it might be. So it's really interesting opening up the space and the atmosphere around us. It's very, very much a part of it.
And often a spirit will open up a door for another spirit.
Very much so. Very, very much so. And that happens in families and friends. And you can be working with one person, and then they're just there to open up the door for the rest of the family to come through. I've seen it with neighbors coming through. I've seen animals open the door for the other people to come through. I've seen it all different ways. But it's very, very true, Kelly. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And would you talk a little bit about spirits on the other side, animal spirits?
Sure.
So many people have a problem believing that they continue.
Well, I don't understand why, because they're energy. You can't kill energy, and they're unconditional love. They're pretty highly advanced, I would say. But again, that's always the human getting in the way. And I see people like, well, that's the human getting in the way. If they, if they realize, because listen, I've done this so many years, and people would say to me, what does the spirit world say about the earth? Like, where are we in the evolutionary track of things? And the answer from the spirit world is pretty amazing. They said, well, when you think of the earth, think that the earth is a grain of sand on the beach.
Wow.
Oh.
How immense and enormous it is. So animals are, I say unconditional love. It's so hard, I find, to measure another dimension, like a seventh or eighth or ninth dimension, with three-dimensional terms and characteristics and awareness, because it goes so beyond our awareness here that we can't really do it with fair justice. But it's definitely, animals are, I don't know, I just think wonderful guides and teachers, and they're here to help us and teach us.
Absolutely. My goodness.
Now, John, I think you had a question?
Yeah, James, this is John here. I have a question about forgiveness and abuse. So let's say we have experienced a lot of abuse growing up as a child, and then you go and you have a reading by the amazing Kelly. And the first person to show up is your stepfather who caused all the abuse. So can you walk us through how that works in terms of what the person who is the abuser experiences once they get to the other side, and how this is supposed to help the person who was abused forgive them or move past?
Great question.
Well, John, it's a great question, and it's not a simple answer. And the reason why it's not a simple answer is because there are so many variables that are involved here. So, number one, we are all souls having this experience in the earth as a schoolroom. And this is a place we come back to experience things, to have work we call karma. Karma is just energy from many lifetimes before, or the things we've done before. We have to come back, and it's kind of a full circle now, see what we've created. So I wouldn't know. I believe that all souls pick their families before they come back. So I do believe in between worlds, we sit with our guides and our teachers, and we'll kind of map out. We're going to have a stepfather, stepmother. We're not going to have a mother at all. Someone's going to die at the age of 20. we work out these various scenarios or lessons that our soul comes back to learn. So in an abuse case, that could have been from lifetimes. There might be some karma left over. There might be a sense of teaching someone about honoring themselves. The only way they can get that is through an abuse situation, which is kind of a weird way of saying it. But sometimes it takes that for people to realize who they are and honor themselves. And it's also, of course, let's say there's an abuse situation, and it happens all the time. It's a lesson, of course. And there is a sense of forgiveness. And I not only abuse, but many times it comes through where, the parent comes to me and they say, wow, I didn't know what I was doing when I was alive. And I have to work with the person on the earth and say, your mother did not know what she was doing, or your father didn't know what they were doing. They're very abusive, and they didn't mean to be. But I say, do you know what their childhood was like? You know what their background is? Because everybody has a story. Every soul has history. And I say, you have to take one step back and be objective. You can't jump into the judgment, because when you step into judgment, you can't see things objectively and honestly. And then you're putting your own bias on it. So the number one thing to be, if you're in that place and you were abused when you were a young kid, maybe you'll be that way when you get older. You have to break that chain.
Right.
And I think that it is a lesson for forgiveness as well. Can you forgive that person? Why would you forgive that person? Because maybe they didn't know what they were doing. Maybe they were a second grade soul instead of a postgraduate soul. Maybe they don't have the awareness of that. And you being a more evolved being, you want to teach them by showing them unconditional love. And the first step is forgiveness. Because I know that, we would want to be forgiven. If we did something wrong, we didn't realize what we were doing, we would certainly want forgiveness. And I always say, take the high road, less traffic. Right?
Less traffic. That's hilarious. I think to add to that, I think it's important to be able to also give the respect of our own anger and our own hurt of what was done, and work through that piece. And then I think forgiveness comes almost naturally once you've worked through that piece. I think sometimes we try to jump too much to the forgiveness piece, and we haven't given ourselves enough respect to work through the anger and the pain and the hurt that it would have caused.
I saw yesterday on your wonderful website about the wheel you have, the wheel of emotions. I saw it was beautifully done on your website, and anger and fear and all that. And I think it's really great. And you say work through it, and I agree with that. And I've recently been teaching class, and I have a school I've been teaching this at, and many times it comes up. It can be so up there, but it comes down to simplicity. And so if we're going through something, we want to say, what lesson is my soul learning here? What lesson is it learning? Am I learning about patience? And I'm learning about honoring myself. I'm learning respecting myself. Am I learning about letting go of addictions? I'm learning about relationships. There's so many different lessons. And if we just say, what lesson am I learning here?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. And given that you kind of alluded to your school, let's talk a little bit about that. You developed a school of mystical arts, and I'm so excited to hear a little bit more about it, because what you've said is that we all have the ability to kind of tune in.
Yes, so every single person is born with intuition, and intuition means this, into the soul. It's a language of the soul. It's how the soul communicates. It's how we survive as babies. They're out of survival. We survive as babies because of intuition, because we have a telepathic link with our mother usually, and that really is intuition. So the more that can be fostered, the stronger it becomes. It's like a muscle. The more you work out, the more it's developed. And every single person can develop their intuition. And there are different, in the school, I developed a school after many, many years of wanting to do this. And it really was a matter of, really, the spirit world put it together, getting the right production people and the right producer and the right internet people together. So it took me quite a while, but I have over 65 lessons in the first school, the first class, which is about psychic or intuition, and the second class about mediumship. And I have people do, they get lessons, a video lesson once a week, mailed to them. They get homework. They go out and do field trips. We meet each other. They got to do readings. They got some great exercises. One exercise, I have them go to a shopping mall, and they have to sit there, and they have to look at the people in the shopping mall and be mindful of the color that person is and what color the light is inside them and what's their emotional level.
Wow.
It's really cool. And then I have them look at a photograph, and they have to tell me psychically or intuitively what's going on with this person, who are they, how old are they, what is their life like. So there's a lot of intuitive exercises. Another one I have is there's a box that I have, and they have to tell me what are the items in the box. Another one I have is I give them the title of a news story that actually happened, and they're going to tell me the whole story, how beginning, middle, and end, all intuitively. It's all intuitive exercises.
Wow.
So the school really celebrates that, and then the next course is mediumship, which people are taking as well, and we're having people from all over the world. There was 65 countries, involved. And I've done readings. We just had a sale in the school, and I've done readings, half-hour readings for about 70 people so far.
Wow.
And we have a great website. It's a Facebook page, James Van Praagh School of Mystical Arts. And so it's been doing very, very well. And I'm really happy that people have enjoyed it. And the feedback's been tremendous. It's not actually on the website. You can see all that feedback we have. It's great, very enjoyable.
Well, I'm so happy that you're doing this, James, because so often people will ask me, where do I go to learn this? I feel like I've got some, intuition. How do I explore this? And I always refer them to you with your new school, because when I was starting up with this, it wasn't there. So I would cling to your books.
Right. That's right. And it's and then I just finished the mediumship part of it also, which is another 6 weeks, and that's goes into physical mediumship, not only mental mediumship, but actually on the camera, you see me change in a physical mediumship. I go into trance, and 3 different spirits come through, and you actually see the faces change. My face changes.
Really? Yeah, I've seen it. I've witnessed it. It's extraordinary. James, could you talk a little bit about physical mediumship, what that is?
Sure. So there's mental mediumship, which most people are aware of now because of Long Island Medium and myself and John Edward and people out there. And mental mediumship is when the spirit will come and project a thought, an image, a memory, a feeling, and the recipient, the medium, is usually clairvoyant, meaning clear sight. So they'll see these images, they'll see memories, or they're clairaudient, where they hear a thought that the spirit's sending. And clairsentient is most common, where we feel the spirit. So that's mental mediumship. Physical mediumship is where the spirit will use the vessel of the medium, the body of the medium, in different ways where they will come through. So one common way is trance, which means that, again, the ego of the medium steps to the side, if you will. And in this case, goes down to another, I guess you would say, another level of consciousness, and almost to that sleeping state, if you will. And they go down, so the conscious mind is little, like not even being aware, and the spirit people come into that physical, I would guess, was physical body of the medium, I'd say, and they would make themselves known. You've heard of channeling, so that's another way. Channeling is the spirit coming through, speaking that way. Transfiguration is when the spirit can come through, and you actually see the fluids in the face change, the moldings, we call them, and you'll see that change in the spirit will come and transfix themselves onto that person's face, and you see that spirit face. There are other ways they can use what's called ectoplasm, which is an energy inside every person, but mostly in mediums. And the spirit doctors and chemists will use and extract that fluid out of usually the nose, the ears, the mouth, this ectoplasmic material, and they can create an artificial voice box in the air, which I've seen this being done, and the spirit can use that and come through and speak like they used to. There was a great medium by the name of Leslie Flint, who I sat with in the 80s from Britain. And he actually has a website of the different voices. Rudolph Valentino's come through, Roosevelt, Gandhi's come through. And you can actually hear these voices and the independent voice box in the air. So that's another way. And there's also, they could use the ectoplasm where they would have like tables rise up, and they'd use them for that. And they'd have in a seance room, they used to have bells, and they'd ring bells. They'd have the tambourines, and play tambourines, and a lot of different ways they could have what's called materializations or apports, where they'd materialize in the seance room a beautiful stone or a feather or a flower right there in the room. And this is really just examples of physical mediumship, all different types of physical mediumship.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
James, would you discuss a little bit about God chills? Or I know when a soul starts to come to me, I can feel the chills that start to come up.
Yeah, why do people always say it feels cold? And I actually felt it once, and we'll talk about when we were on the cruise, and we'll talk about your new cruise coming up too. But I felt it. I felt all of a sudden cold, and in my mind, an image of my mother showed up. But why is it always cold?
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Speak up. We just lost him.
Oh. I guess the spirits got a little too
there
close.
You go.
I think that maybe they didn't like the question. Oops. I think we didn't get a chance to tell our listeners that James is Skyping from his home.
And we're trying to get him back right now. So.
Okay. Well, I know for me, I always, whenever I'm doing a reading and a soul will come in, I can feel it, and I can feel the energy getting closer and closer and closer, and I get the chills, and that's when I know that I'm right there.
Yeah, I was always curious as to why you feel cold.
I don't. It's a good question. I don't know. Maybe he can answer that question for us as soon as we get him back. But
I had a feeling this was going to happen because anytime we deal with spirit energy, it's going to affect
vibration starts to rise.
Really?
And
Yeah.
Oh,
It always happens.
Always
my
happens.
God.
Oh my gosh, I've
Now,
broken.
You don't see anybody in here, do you, Kel?
Well, I think Bill is still here.
Oh Lord! Oh Lord!
I'm not kidding.
Oh wow!
Bill who?
God.
That's
It
the
was-
stepfather that
Came through. I did
that
a
came
reading the other
through.
day for him, and
Yeah.
just like that, the
He was at
stepfather
the
came
door
through.
knocking before I even got there
Before
at your
he got
office.
there, and when he walked in, I said, "Boy, I've got Bill here."
No, we lost.
Yeah, we're still trying to get him back.
Well,
So we'll keep
but-
trying.
Yeah, we'll keep trying. But I tell you what, this school that James has is extraordinary.
I'm so glad he's doing that,
Oh.
and it's so how. I mean, of course, it's
I wish it had
because
been
it's
available
James, I
back
was going
then.
to say how bright to do
Oh.
first year of intuition because I do believe. I mean, I consider myself.
Well, you've taken
pretty
some classes
intuitive,
with
and
James
I've taken,
too.
Yeah. And to garner your intuitive skills. I mean, the intuition is never wrong, and I
Oh my
hardly ever
gosh.
say always and never, but
Right.
it really every time I make decisions based on just what I'm feeling and I don't overthink it. Mm-hmm. It was exactly the right decision to make.
All of us can go back in our life and go, all right, what if I had paid attention to this signal, which was I went against what I was thinking.
Right,
I mean, I really knew I shouldn't have done that, but you feel it. You can
but
feel it.
even if it's we can say silly things like if I'm if I'm going to go to work and then I'm going to come home and then I have to pack something. The thought goes, well, just pack it now. And then I
Right.
question, I go, no, I'm going to come back anyways. And then sure enough,
Right.
I either run late at the office so I don't have time to come home.
So true.
And it would have been so much easier if I would have packed whatever,
Do it right then and there. As soon as you get that feeling,
When you
or
have that-
for me, I'm also clairaudient. I'll hear something. Well, other people can hear things too.
Yeah. But
Definitely.
just to kind of exercise intuition,
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't want to, go into mediumship or
Oh, this classes will open you up and expand your awareness of you in the world, which will also help other people around you, which will
Yeah.
open them up, which will open them up.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah,
really
'cause it
goes
truly is contagious,
exponentially.
yeah.
It is contagious. I mean, you and I both have been with James on many cruises, and I can't wait to get him back on the phone, but we're going to Tahiti with James.
Yes, and
Yay!
everyone is invited. I think there's still
There's
space.
still just a few spaces left,
You
and
can
it's
go,
going
I
to be
think,
extraordinary.
to James Van Praagh's website. It's on
I
his
think it's
website, right?
vanpraagh.com.
Yeah, and so I went. You've been on many cruises. I went
Many.
with you and James. My first cruise with you and James to the Caribbean.
We went
wasn't
to the
it?
Caribbean on that one,
A
yeah.
couple of years ago, and now in July to Tahiti. It was so much fun.
Oh, it's so much fun. But you know what's really cool about it is when there's water present. So you're on this wonderful ship, this
Yeah.
cruise ship, but there's water all around, and spirit comes in so well, and for me, almost easily. It comes in because it
Water's
connects
a
through
good-
that water. There's something about the water.
As being a conductor.
It's a conductor.
conduit,
I mean,
yeah.
and I'm hoping that we'll do some seances, right, James, while we're there.
wow.
Come on, Cheryl, let's do
Well,
some
hey,
seances.
you know what?
It'll
I'm
be so
always
fun.
up for anything.
You're so good about
you know
that.
me.
I know.
I'm like, I'm just going
But
to
people
go
will
for
get
it.
extraordinary messages.
Well, I still have, and I was going to tell James because I don't know if I told him that we met an Argentine family on that boat, and I'm still friends with them.
That's right.
And
I
they
forgot
had three
about that.
three kids, and their eldest boy, I think it was the eldest boy, had passed away. And they were hoping for a message. They went on this cruise, and we're still good friends.
Wow. And as I recall, they did get a lot of
And-
messages.
Oh, they did. They did.
It was
James-
life-changing for them.
It was because they were hoping to hear, and when you lose a child, I mean, that's
James, are you back on the line? We got you by phone at least.
I'm here, and I don't know if I want to continue this radio show.
That's so
As soon as we
crazy.
start talking about spirits, kaboom.
Yeah. As soon as we talked about
The whole block of electricity just went out.
Oh,
is
James, you're
that
not going to
what
believe this. My
happens?
electricity went out in my house before I came today. So there you go. And I said, you're still not going to prevent me from coming out
I hope
here.
Bill's not raging
I know.
again.
So,
That's funny.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
so if you could tell us a little bit about, I don't know if you got a chance to hear what Kelly was asking you about why when spirit comes you feel cold.
The God chills is
Yes.
what I call it.
Yeah, the God chills and the goosebumps, and we all have it differently. From my understanding, because it's very different with different people, but it really is because of a change in the dimension. So they're in a very different dimension, And it seems when they come close to here, it gets very, very cold down to this level. If they come closer to us, we'll feel their cold. And the more sensitive, of course, we are, the easier it is for us to feel that. I remember when a good friend of mine passed away, I helped her actually pass over. And I wasn't in the location she was at, but I was mentally helping her through the passing. And she came like 2 hours later in my room in this freezing cold. I would say it's about 20 feet high.
Wait, James, before you even go there, James, would you mind telling us who that person is? Because this is a fabulous story.
Yeah, so it's Debbie Ford. Debbie Ford was a life coach, and she was one of really worked with what's called the light chasers that kind of get the dark side of ourselves.
She worked with the shadow, right?
Yeah, shadow effect.
The shadow side. Mm-hmm. The shadow side. And she really worked hard at that, and she wrote many books and did many different types of workshops and worked for many years doing that work, dedicating herself to that work. And she died of a very rare cancer. And what it was 2 years before she passed away, she came to me in New York and she said, would you mind helping me? Would you be able to help me over when it's my time to pass? I said, of course I would be more than happy to be honored. So it did come to that point, and it was a Thursday night, and I was at my house, and her sister called up on the phone. She said, Debbie wants to speak to you. She's not doing well. And Debbie got on the phone and said, I think it's tonight, James. And she was on morphine. She wasn't feeling well. And I said, well, Debbie, I'll be there for you. Just remember, I'm there for you. Just knowing your thoughts in your mind, I'm there for you. So just remember that. She goes, okay, I love you, and I love you. And then what happened was it wasn't Thursday night. It came to Saturday, and then Sunday, I called up her sister and said, how is Debbie doing? I assume she hasn't passed it. And she said, no. And she said she's very, very strong, and the hospice nurse doesn't know what's keeping her here because she won't pass, and they don't understand this. So that's when I went into meditation with her, and in my mind, and I saw Debbie very clearly. And I said, Debbie, why won't you pass? And she said, I have an 18-year-old son, James. So I said, but, he's with your mother, and it's all done telepathically. He's with your mother, the family is around, you'll be okay. And Debbie said, it's just the weirdest thing. I spent my whole life learning how to live, and now I have to learn how to die. Wow. And she said, and it's like having keys to a car, but you don't know how to drive. So I was able to tell her her father was there, and 2 friends of hers from Florida. I gave her names and the details, which I found out later, indeed, that was exactly who they were. And I said, think of the Wizard of Oz. Just go towards Oz and just be light as a feather, light as a feather. He said, you sure this is going to work? I said, I promise. And that's about 2 hours later when the coldness came into my space, my room. And really, then her sister called 5 minutes later, and she said, Debbie just passed. I said, yes, I know. And 5 o'clock that morning, I got up and started writing a book because Debbie was right there and saying to me, I cannot believe how obsessed I was about the physical body, the human body. Why was I so upset about that? People don't understand. You shouldn't pay so much attention to it. You really should understand about your spirit, that you're so much more than this physical body. Mm-hmm. And she wanted me to write a book about it. So I did. I wrote the book called Adventures of the Soul, my last book, and really based upon that experience that I had with her. That's why I wrote that book. So
That's a terrific book.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great book. I love that book. All my books are very different, and that one is definitely, that's Debbie inspired that for sure, but a very important book.
Wow.
Well, and you wrote another beautiful one about, kids and when they pass, and I'm sure that this is a question on a lot of people's minds, about
growing up in heaven.
Yeah, it's such a great book. About why kids pass, when they pass, what can parents take with them? Because it's just such a difficult thing to work with, to deal with.
It's the hardest, I believe, the hardest lesson for us souls to go through on this human earth is was a child. I think it's the hardest thing. And I've worked with thousands of parents, and I still believe it's the hardest lesson. And I say to the parents, it's very interesting because who knows? Again, we're going back to the same question John asked earlier about the abuse situation. We don't know the history of these souls together. We don't know the family group. We don't know by this occurrence if it'll help another group of souls later on. Because, for instance, I know in a book I talk about Marie Levine, who lost her son Peter back in New York. And when I met this lady, her son was 19 years old, coming home from college, and was in a tragic accident and died. And this lady came to me, and she sat right in front of me, and she said, I don't want to live anymore. I want my life to be over. It's worthless now. And the son came to her and said, no, Mom, we planned this before we came back in your lifetime, that I would go early because I have to help you from the other side of life to make other people's lives easier, which is the weirdest type of thing to hear, but that's what is going on. And this lady had, say, 7 years, she started then doing a chapter of Compassionate Friends, Parents of Lost Children, and really doing these newsletters and articles and taking up part of the country with this wonderful, she wrote 2 books, wonderful books, and she's helping a lot of parents now who've lost their children, how to help them and cope with that, and also giving a spiritual understanding. So we don't know if it could be souls, that there's an agreement that that soul will go over and help something else to occur later. We also don't know if it was a karmic obligation, because maybe in another lifetime, the mother had left early and that son's spirit, let's say, had to go through life and learn what grief was. So it's all about learning both sides, if you will, the components of grief and living on. So that's really what, there's a lot of aspects to it. You don't know what's going to help people later on too. I mean, by someone dying of a drug addiction, and the mother and the father and the other family members going through that, it's devastating. It's horrendous. And how can anything good come from this? Well, maybe eventually they'll be coming up with some kind of a group or write a book or get support groups or get some research done about drug addiction or whatever it might be, and it'll help save lives maybe later on. So we don't know the whole reason, but I will say that so it can be any one of those things. But the most important thing to know is that there is no death, and that your loved ones, your children are right there with you, and they're helping you. You don't go through life alone. One thing else I got to say, which I think is really important, because a son said this to his mother and father at an event, I think 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and I've used it every single event I've done because it was so incredible. It was a hard thing to say, because you don't want to say it the wrong way, and you want to bring through the message. But the son said to his mother and father, "I died once. Don't make me die every day with your thoughts."
Oh, wow.
So it's a hard thing to hear, but it's very, very true, because, you know, they've gone over once and they've had a whole full life, and let's say they died when they're 20 years old. The mother or father might obsess about how that particular last day of their life, and they think of them as a dead child, their last day, when they had many, many years, 19 and a half years before that of life. Why won't they use that? But we seem to stay focused on that last event. And the spirit was really, honestly, I mean, it's true, because they see our thoughts all the time, and they don't want us to be obsessed. And another way, it's really interesting about the dead. Sometimes I feel it's so disrespectful to think that they're dead. They're really alive.
That's hysterical.
That is
true.
It's hysterically
that
true.
is so true. So maybe we can think of a new word that can, that we can use instead of the word dead. Maybe we can meditate on that on the cruise, James. We talked about the cruise we're going to go on, and come up with a new word.
Yes. Well, I've come up with a new word for the actual cruise. I'm changing it to a soul immersion cruise.
Ooh.
A soul immersion. Because the more I think of it, the more I contemplate and meditate on the cruise, it's only going to be 100 people. It's up to 85 now. Only 15 more spots open.
Okay.
Wow.
And it's going to be a total transformation. It's going to be really going to work on many different levels: the mental, the physical, the emotional, spiritual. And we were talking earlier, Shirley, about the physical mediumship. I'm actually going to do some trance mediumship when I'm there. We're going to do some healing, where we're going to go to an own private island there that the ship owns. And we'll do some polarity work. We're going to do some real great healing, some releasing work. It's going to be great. And we're going to get into a channeled, if you will, a channeled state. And see who comes through as far as our guides come through.
Oh,
and
yeah.
see what happens when each person channels mentally. They channel. So
And I can tell you firsthand that the first time I ever went to Tahiti, I did see my guides. And because I read James's first book in 1997, that is when he talked about spirit guides. I did every single thing he said to do in the book. And when I was in Tahiti, I actually saw them with my physical eyes. So I can tell you that Tahiti is a transformative place. To be so lucky and blessed to be there with James.
Oh my gosh, Tahiti is, I've been in Tahiti and had an incredible experience when I was on a cruise there as well. Tahiti's a magical place.
It's heaven on earth.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Oh
put
my
that up
gosh,
on the
I can't
screen.
wait. We're going to try and maybe do a radio show from there.
Oh,
And
all
try
right.
to just do
Wow.
at
That would be
least
great.
maybe document, what we're experiencing.
That's
so
a
our
great
listeners
idea.
so our listeners can
we could do
can live it
Periscope.
with us. Yeah. We're
That'd
going to
be
try and do
great.
something for our listeners, because it's going to be an incredible
great.
experience.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh
Really
my
excited.
gosh.
So, I mean, everything that you said has just been so helpful, particularly what you just said about kids and how to deal with it, and that message. I mean, that really hit me. The message from
It's a really strong message, but it makes total sense,
Yeah,
because they feel our thoughts. Thoughts are energy all around us. It's the atmosphere of thought and our minds, and they want us to have the best life we can. And it's hard to have positive things come into your life if the mind is dirty. If the atmosphere is dirty and it blocks energy, they don't want that. They want the best for you. And negative thinking and limitation thinking will block positive energy. So they don't want that. So the more we grief, the more we realize we think they're dead, they're not, it holds us back. It really does. It doesn't really hold the spirit back, it holds kind of us back in experiences.
Oh, it does. And it frees not only the other side up, but it frees us up to be able to do what we came here to do.
That's right. So you'll have no unfinished business when it's your time to go over. No
Exactly.
You'll be able to do it,
Well, and
Very,
that's
very true.
Yeah, and that's so true because, going along with what you're saying, remember Kelly came into a session with someone that I was working with who had lost a large portion of their family, and that was the big message, was they wanted this person, my patient, to open their heart and to continue to feel love. And actually, remember, I have a pretty big stone in the shape of a heart on top of my coffee table, which started to vibrate as Kelly was saying that and reading the family.
Yeah, it was
through.
actually quite amazing, and it started to lift up. That was something. And in fact, we ended up giving it to him.
I expect nothing less, Kelly.
Yeah, well, I
love to be with James. We have so much fun.
As you can imagine, I was quite frozen.
She was frozen. She literally was frozen.
And couldn't believe my eyes.
The poor guy.
But yeah, so I of course had this person take the stone home, but it was amazing. And you're absolutely right. I mean, even if we think about it that way, would you really, as you think about the person who's passed on, do you really think that person wants us to stay kind of, in this sad energy field?
Absolutely not.
Not at all. Not at all. And it's so interesting because, this is a very interesting story. I was doing a reading in, I think it was Las Vegas. It must have been years ago. And I remember there was a lady in the audience, and she was coughing a lot. I could see her lungs were black. And I said, "You're smoking cigarettes?" She goes, "Yes." I said, I would stop that if I were you. It seemed that, I was getting it psychically, telepathically. I was just able to see it, what's going on here. And I knew if she didn't stop it, she'd be dead. I just knew it. Wow. And about 2 or 3 years later, I'm somewhere else, and all of a sudden this lady comes to me and said, "I want to talk to my husband." And she said, "I should have listened to you." I'm like, "Excuse me?" It was a lady who was in that audience.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
she had passed over from cancer, lung cancer. And she was a perfect example of what you're saying. She said, "Take it from me, James, because you remember in the audience, I was there. Listen to," and she's saying, "Listen." She said, "Don't dwell on the past. Live for now. Your loved ones want you to live. They don't want you to die." And she said that. It was really interesting.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah,
lessons
true.
lessons we can learn from the other side.
Wow.
It's true. It's so true. There is no death. Screaming from the highest mountains.
So true.
Wow.
James,
Wow.
what's a good way to prepare if somebody believes they're going to cross over soon? What's a good way to prepare them for crossing over?
Well, number one, I would say that they have to educate them that power is that education is power. So just let them know, reassure them that there is no such thing as death. However, you can do that. If they can just do a reading for them, they can read spiritual books. Just a spiritual understanding, opening up the mind, being aware of things. I'd also say to them, ask them to send out thoughts to loved ones that have passed over before them, and ask them to come close to them and to have messages for them. And I talk about this a lot where I have someone's going over to the side, write a letter or write a couple of letters to those loved ones who've already passed and what to expect and can they come to. And it's amazing what they receive in the response. So the loved one will be sitting there writing a letter to the deceased person, and the deceased spirits they'll come in and they'll tell you what to expect. There's no pain here, many different types of messages. But the most important thing for that is to educate that person really there is no such thing as death. You're a soul. You've died many thousands and thousands of times before, and your loved ones are there. The bonds of love and created on the earth continue on. Yeah. So all those loving people who you've shared life with on this side will be with you at the threshold. No one ever dies alone. Ever dies alone.
It's so true.
A month they come about a month or 2 months ahead of time. See? There's what they call a calling that goes off in the spirit level, in the spirit realm. But it's a calling, I don't know how they do it, but they inform people that another soul is coming back home. And they will prepare for that soul for years or for months. And part of the preparation is they come down to the earth level and let that loved one know, that person that's maybe ill or by passing, that they're with them. They're taking care of everything to make the passing a peaceful passing. That there's really nothing to worry about. the one thing I want to say also is a person should talk about their family left behind, or make sure that everything is taken care of before they leave. That's very important.
Right.
It's interesting because I find that people who are more aware have a very easy transition, and also when the release happens, there's a sense of joy and happiness. And I had a near-death experience, and it was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And in the spirit, there's a wonderful, I put in my last book, Adventure of the Soul, I wrote this, I remember there's a Navajo saying, which I use, which is, when we're born, we're crying and everyone else is happy. When we die, they're crying and we're happy. And that's exactly what it's like.
I believe that.
Exactly what it's like.
I believe that 100%. I mean, ever since I was little, I used to tell my parents and my sister, which of course they thought I was really weird, that, don't celebrate my birthday, but when I die, have a celebration, have a party. And they would look at me like, what? So I stopped saying it because then I started to feel weird. So thank you for that validation, James.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's so funny because now, mediumship, as you know, Kelly, and it's more in the mainstream now because of, myself and books and John Edward and Lisa Williams and now the Long Island Medium and other now young mediums coming in. And it's really wonderful because it really has brought the subject matter to the center, and everybody has experiences, whether it's psychic experiences, telepathic, precognitive experiences. Everybody has some, or past life regression experiences. People have experiences that they're more than just the human body. And now it's okay to talk about those things.
Oh,
That's
yes.
why you have a radio show and
Absolutely.
TV shows we do.
And one of the
Yeah,
ways
so-
that spirit comes to everybody is in the middle of the night when you're asleep having a dream. It's easy for them the soul to come into the dream state.
Exactly right. Because we're not in the conscious mind anymore. We're not part of that. We're not in the control state also.
Yeah.
So, again, here we go about letting go of control, letting go of the ego, letting go of the conscious part of ourselves. And it's easier for them to come through that way for sure. But also, we leave our bodies at night. Our souls, our spirits, will leave the body at night and go back to the spiritual realm and see their loved ones, see their guides, see their teachers. And then in the morning, we come back into the physical body and come back to the conscious space of the human.
Isn't that
And it's like
amazing?
we wake up and, so it's very
Amazing.
Sometimes we have memories of those dreams, of those, I call them crossovers, where we're with them. And other times just regular dreams that we're working out certain things. But crossovers, we're with our loved ones. There's no death. There is
No
none.
death.
There is no death. Well, you know what? I mean, thank you so much, because if it was because of your courage that now people are talking about it, because you were the first one that came out
That's correct.
against all odds, and you started talking about it and opened it up for other people to
Kick
talk
the
about
door
as well.
open.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I thank you. I don't think I had a choice in the matter. I think I came back.
You probably
I think I
didn't, but
prepared
the
for
earth
this
you, I'm
lifetime.
sure, might have been a little afraid.
I came back for this work, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we spend sometimes many lifetimes preparing for one very important lifetime. So I think that's really what happened with me.
wow.
I've been a mystic before in other religions. I've known all different types of religions in the world, experienced them. I come back in this lifetime to have an understanding of many different types of spiritual belief systems and mediumship. So I think I've worked on it to come back and do this lifetime.
Yeah. Well, we're so glad and grateful you did,
Yeah.
James.
It's so important to have an open mind. And to keep an open mind. Thank
Oh my
you.
gosh, James, thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go try to find my electricity. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Love to Brian.
Yeah,
And love
thank
to my
you.
little peanut.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you, James.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye. Wow.
That
What
was
a
great.
treat that was. That
Yes.
was amazing.
So great.
So thank you for listening. Good afternoon. And you wanted to make a quick announcement, Kelly?
We're going to continue the discussion live.
Yeah. Well, not live.
Not live,
We're going to
but-
kind of like how they do on what those shows.
like on a Bill Maher show.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
We're going to continue.
The after
this
show?
discussion.
The
If
after
you
show.
want to call in for,
So-
spiritual advice, psychological advice,
Call in, yeah,
talk
we're-
about what James just discussed. Any
And we're
questions?
going to air it next week since it's the Super Bowl. We thought we'd continue the talk now. And if you want to have a reading, Kelly's going to do some readings. And then we're
Great.
going to air it next Sunday. So we're going to go off the air now, but please call the number. What's the number to call?
It's
John?
323-284-7826.
One more time.
323-284-7826.
Thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for listening and watching.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo Dr. Shirley and Kelly White. Two perspectives, one world.